Hello everyone, welcome to my channel. My name is Ari, and today we're going to have some more stories about our toxic life. But before we start, it would be so much appreciated if you would subscribe to my channel, like the video, if you enjoy it, and maybe leave a comment down below. These simple clicks would mean a lot to the future of this channel and really reward the effort that I put in every day. And now without further ado, let's go. Today's first story. In this story, OP suspected his wife of being overly excited about their son's birthday party. Later, he discovered she had an emotional affair with another man who stayed at their house for the party. He caught his wife and the man in a compromising situation, leading to their separation and eventual divorce. Now let's get into the story. I suspected my wife was more excited than normal for our 13-year-old son's birthday party. I didn't know it at the time, but she was having an emotional affair with the father of our son's best friend weeks before the party. She arranged for the father and son to come stay at our house for 3 nights since they'd moved out of town over the summer and our son needed his best friend to attend his birthday party. She was acting super happy and pleased with herself. After the arrangements were made, I asked her why she was exceptionally excited, and she thought I was being silly and said I should be just as excited for her son's birthday. She was on her phone a lot before the party, but my wife was usually on Facebook or TikTok. On the day the father and son arrived at her house, she was dressed nicely. She always was, but I could tell she went the extra mile for some reason. The first night with the man in her house, I stayed awake until 4 a.m. or so, but eventually crashed. By the time I woke up, my wife was out of bed, and I was really upset about it. I stumbled out of our room in my robe and found them sitting at the dining room table. The kids weren't up yet, and they were eating breakfast my wife made. I glared at them awkwardly. She greeted me super nicely, as if that would assure me everything was fine. We played some games with the kids and took them to the park. I talked with the guy a little. His wife passed away a year ago. He and his son were evicted from the home they rented for years, and the only place he could find to rent was out of town. I thanked him for bringing his son to the party, and he thanked me for sharing my home. He didn't thank me for sharing my wife because he didn't want me to know that part. The next night, I felt a little more at ease assuming I built some trust and respect with the dude. After we all went to bed, I fell asleep early and slept the whole night through the next morning. My wife and the guy were sitting together at the table again. They sat with their faces inches from each other like they were about to kiss. I grunted a good morning and they both jumped as I caught them. My wife broke the awkwardness by announcing we needed to start decorating for the party. Before we knew it, party guests started to arrive amongst the yelling of children and joyful screams. I lost track of my wife and the dude. When it was time for the cake, I started looking for them. They weren't in any obvious room in the house, so eventually I opened the laundry room door. I found my wife sitting on the dryer, straddling the man between her legs. She was wearing a skirt and it was pulled up pretty high. My wife yelled, pushed him away, and jumped off the dryer. She asked me what was up and if it was time to do the cake. I stared at her like she was crazy, and it took her a few painful seconds to ask me if I saw what just happened. I said yes and demanded an explanation while I stared down both of them. Her hands flew up to cover her mouth. She started crying and said she would explain it all to me, but pleaded with me to wait until after our son's party was over. Since I was unexpectedly about to discover something my wife intended to keep from me. My blood was boiling. I told her I would not wait and that we were going to talk about this right now. I grabbed her hand, dragged her into her bedroom, and shut the door. I told her to start talking and tell me everything. She started by saying that it was supposed to be a one-time thing and she could never bring herself to do it again, no matter how much he needed it. I was blown away. I asked her what she was talking about and she admitted she slept with the guy twice last night and yesterday morning. He told her he needed it more than he could stand because they'd been talking about having intimate and building it up for months, ever since last school year when our son and his son were playing football together. They started texting, sexting, and talking on the phone. She begged me for forgiveness, but I was too busy processing this information to hear her. She'd been having an emotional affair for half of the year, talking to this guy about having intimate with him until she arranged for him to sleep in our house and finally made it happen. I told her if she didn't leave the house immediately, I would tell everyone attending our son's party to leave. Of course, I probably wouldn't have done this, but it convinced her to start packing a few things. I stormed out of our room to confront the homewrecker, only to find he was gone. I looked for his son among the blissful party guests, and he was gone. None of the kids noticed anything happening. They were distracted by a movie. Before my wife left, I told her I didn't want to see her again until she was ready to sign divorce papers. She fell to her knees and cried, begging my forgiveness. I told her she was making a fool of herself and the only way our family could have stayed together. As if she would have kept her pants on in wits about her. I told her I would tell our son that grandma was having some trouble and needed her to help around the house for a few days. She cried harder, but after weighing her options, she got up and somberly drove to her parents' house. I'd like to say our son handled the separation and divorced well, but I can tell it hurt him. He chose to stay with me in the family home. This broke his mother's heart, but she knows she has no one to blame but herself. After 18 years of marriage, she chose to give herself away right under my nose. After the short-lived affair, her lover refused to see her again out of remorse. Whenever I see her for visitation with our son, she looks at me like she still loves me. She expresses her regret and wishes for me to find a better wife than her. Well, all her wishes must have paid off because I did remarry and she is better than my ex. I know she stopped wishing for my sake and switched to more self-centered wishing. Today's second story. In this story, OP returned early from a work trip to surprise your partner for her birthday, only to catch her cheating with a guy from your gym. You've decided to leave her, are staying with a supportive friend, Y, and plan to quietly move out without confronting your partner directly. You've informed the property manager of your sudden split, and there's a possibility of a future relationship with Y. Now let's get into the story. So I went on a work trip for a week and told my partner of 3 years ex that I was coming home on Sunday. But I had actually booked to fly in yesterday and take her on a surprise date for her birthday, which I otherwise would have missed. I messaged ex happy birthday yesterday morning and asked what she was doing for the day, to which she replied she would be having a wine and movies night with her friend Y, who lives in our apartment block. I reiterated that I could not wait to be home on Sunday. She said she couldn't wait and that she loved me. It has been really hard to write and relive this, but when I got home, I parked out by the front of the building on the street, and when I walked through the code gate, I couldn't see lights on up by our balcony. I did see Y's lights on, so I assumed X would be at her place. I didn't even have to enter as her place was on ground level and I saw through her window she was on her couch watching TV alone. I figured maybe X was out. So I walked up our 3 flights of stairs, and as I approached the door, I could hear it and my heart just sank. The sound of R&B music moaning and knocking. The door wasn't even locked, and with the way it's positioned, opening the door gave a direct view of our bedroom. I just slightly opened the door and saw my girlfriend straddled on top of who I instantly recognized to be a guy from the gym we go to. I think what stood out to me more was that it looked like it was unprotected 6. As I could see everything, I quietly closed the door and my soul just felt like it floated. I knew they never heard me or noticed the door. I sat on the step for a good 5 minutes to process. This has always been my worst nightmare, but to literally have it play out exactly how I dreaded another man in our bed just gripped at the heart. I couldn't cry as it felt so surreal. Was this really happening? Was I dreaming? The continued sounds quickly brought me back to earth. I got up and walked out of the building and towards the front gate. Y had spotted me through the window and called out to me and waved, gesturing for me to come over. I do get along very well with her, and in the past, she had told X how highly she thought of me as a friend too. She had also openly told X that she found me attractive and asked if I had single friends who are also my nationality from New Zealand. There had always been chemistry between us the first time I met Y, but that always stayed buried in my mind. I put on a brave face and walked into her apartment. We hugged and she asked what I was doing home early. I told her I had dates mixed up and wasn't she supposed to be having birthday drinks with X? She seemed confused and told me that X said she was going out for drinks with some of our gym friends. Go figure. I instantly burst out in tears and cried for what felt like forever, and she got quite worried, asking what was wrong, did something happen to me, etc. I struggled for words, but blurted out that I had just walked in on the 2 of them in our bed. Her face turned so white and she just hugged me and started to cry too. She knew I was a joker, but I think she knew this was no joke. I just started talking out of frustration, saying that I didn't know what to do, that they could be up there all night, and that this was my nightmare. We had no issues in our relationship other than her lack of interest in sex once every 6 weeks. It's a wonder I lasted 3 years with her, and I had accepted that a long time ago. Y laughed through her tears and told me she had always been single and not had sex the entire time she knew me, and joked that maybe we could both use it. That actually made me laugh a bit too, and I hugged her, thanked her, and for a second forgot X was upstairs cheating on me. I asked her if I could stay there for the night as I had nowhere to go, and I slept on the couch. I am still here a day later. I watched the guy leave in the morning and watched in tears when he came back this evening. I'm supposed to be home tomorrow afternoon. I haven't texted X all day, but she hasn't texted me either. Truth be told, the only comfort I have now is with Y. How do I deal with X? Do I walk up there and interrupt? Do I call? Firstly, I want to thank everyone for their views, opinions, and advice. I'm still trying to keep up with reading the comments. I appreciate those saying I should have had a backbone or spine. To be honest, I'd be saying the same things to someone else. This is my first experience with infidelity, so it was easier to judge until it actually happened to me. Anywho, before I tell you what has happened today, I will answer a few questions. Me, I have my own business and run it end to end by myself. I travel maybe 3 times a year to meet with production facilities and do quality checks for my product. Physically, I'm 6 foot 6,124 kilograms, and I play rugby and have done a lot of boxing, so I can definitely defend myself. However, I do not go around using that. I absolutely tower over that piece of crap guy in every way. I earn a very comfortable living, as does X, so a split will not financially cripple either of us. And we're not married. The tears have been shed. I realize this was a blessing in disguise, and I know what I need to do. Apartment: we split all the bills 50-50 and have for months and a week left on a year-long lease which has both our names on it. We had been actively looking for a home to buy. I guess I dodged a bullet there. Why? What a woman. Aside from her personality, she is absolutely gorgeous. How she is and always has been single, I will never know. And she has not been intimate with anyone in over 3 years. According to X, she has been on my side through it all without saying a cruel word about X. She understands it was a bad thing to do towards me and that it does not involve her. That being said, she has said once X inevitably owns up to it, she will likely stop being friends with her. She has not tried to come on to me like a rebound and has just been super supportive. That alone speaks volumes to her character. X works in a hospital and is very attractive. Nice woman, but can be quite self-centered in hindsight. We were basically just friends. We have only ever had protected sex because she does not want to get pregnant or go on the pill, and it was once in a blue moon. I guess I just accepted it and got too comfortable in the relationship being what it was. I'm just trying to get my head around how she never even showed signs that she was cheating. I know I'm not perfect, but I have always been good to her, always cooked for her, and did a lot around the house. We went on dates regularly. I told her things about her to make her feel loved, and I always got brushed off after what I thought was a good night. I now question why, if she didn't want me, why did she stay for so long? My plan: I intended to call her this morning to say my flight would be leaving earlier and that could she pick me up the airport earlier. With the airport being a 40-minute drive away, I would use this time to go up and pack all of my things and rush them to my car. Y said I could put some of it in her spare room. Once X noticed my things missing, she would try to call me, message me, etc., and I would simply respond with a photo of the two of them in bed. After reading comments, I decided the cruelest punishment for her would be to have no closure. I would explain to the property manager my circumstances and go and stay with a friend until I could find a new place. X could cover the rent. She could certainly afford it. I do have the option to stay with Y, but that is way too close to X, and I do not want to do anything with Y that could ruin our friendship, even though I know her and inevitable the outcome. I went up very early in the morning and very quietly opened the door. Fortunately, they were asleep on the bed, so I took a photo of them. But it was weird. I almost felt guilty about violating privacy when my entire relationship was violated. I did not feel sad anymore, just angry and betrayed. I noticed his shoes on the floor next to my various much larger pairs. I decided to take a photo of those and use it first. I figured it would be a more subtle way that she would likely lie about until I hit her with a photo of them in bed. I went back down to Y's and waited around for another hour or so until I was certain X would be awake. I tried to call but got no answer and twice again to no answer. I looked at Y and we both just knew what was happening. After about a half hour she called me and sounded very much awake and like everything was very much normal. I tried to put on my normal voice and told her my flight was leaving 2 hours earlier than I thought. I asked if she could collect me at 1 p.m. She said yes and that she loved me, that she was at her parents' for breakfast, and that they said hello. Lie on that note her parents love me and will be broken about this. I went and laid down for a few hours to run through what I would get from the apartment. Other than clothes and a few appliances, most of my stuff was already boxed as I knew that if we bought a house I wanted an easy move. Around midday, I saw X go down to the car park and I gave it a few minutes after she left before I moved my car and went upstairs. It smelt like air freshener and I noticed new sheets and covers on the bed. All the dishes were done. She went to every length to cover up that anyone else had ever been there. It took me all the 10 minutes to gather all of my things. If I forgot anything, I probably didn't care about it. It did feel weird knowing it would be a good bite at the place I called home, but I felt strong. X sent me a message asking where I was as she was at the arrivals area. I replied and said I was held up and that I would Uber home. Maybe an hour later a bunch of missed calls and messages came in asking where all of my stuff was and if something had happened. My heart nearly beat out of my chest when I sent the photo of the shoes saying these aren't my size. She had the audacity to reply saying that they were her brother's from when he picked her up to go to mom and dad's. Did I not say she would pull something like that? I didn't even want to discuss it, but I knew she was cornered, so I sent the photo of them in bed and I left it at that. She did not even try to call. I was expecting a wave of calls or texts in my eyes. That was me leaving her and I know I could have called her out or caught them in the act and confronted them, but I wanted her to know I knew and that she would never be able to know how or explain herself. I will not tarnish her name as it is not in my nature and I do not want to ruin her life. But she can live with this forever. Although I doubt she has a conscience. I have left Y's as I know X will be down to see her soon and I met my friends nearby collecting today's rundown to relay to you all. If it were not for Y, this would have been a lot harder, but I know she will sever her friendship with X in the next day or two. I am doing well and looking ahead. This hurt at first, but I'm glad I found out now and not after we bought a home. I have sent an email to the property manager informing her of our sudden split and that she would be covering the rent until the lease ended and that she could keep the bond. I think the pain for X will be when Y and I begin our inevitable relationship.